His foreign policy vision, he did mention Iran, and this comes as we take in what's happening in Iran right now and some serious economic pain. The currency there plunging in value, sparking massive protests against the Islamic regime. Joining us now, Mark Dubowitz, Executive Director of the Foundation for Defense of Democracy. So, Mark, one of the things that Mitt Romney said today is that Iran has never posed a greater danger to our friends, our allies, and to us, and has never acted less deterred by America. Do you agree with that premise?
Well, I do, Jenna. I mean, it's very clear that the Iranian regime is not deterred by economic pressure. They continue to race forward on their nuclear program. And according to Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu, the spring or summer of next year, Iran will have nuclear capacity and the ability to break out or sneak out to develop a nuclear weapon. The currency is dropping. There are riots, but we have seen no evidence to date that economic pressure is changing the calculus of Iran's supreme leader.
So this might be oversimplifying things, but when we see that unrest in the streets of Iran and we're just getting drips and drabs of it because we don't have a lot of access, is that good for America? Does that mean that the sanctions are working in some ways, if not fully?
Well, Jenna, you know what? The protests are not massive. They are limited. And the fact of the matter is that if we really want to test this thesis, we've got to bring Iran to the verge of economic collapse, and we've got to test the nuclear will of Iran's supreme leader, Ali Khamenei. So far, we have not done that. We are far off from economic collapse. There's much more that needs to get done.
And how do you do that? How do you bring the regime in the country to economic collapse and not create more anger, more hostility towards the United States, or is that even a factor in how you look at whether or not this is effective in achieving our ultimate goal, which is making sure that Iran doesn't have a nuclear weapon?
Yeah. Well, Jenna, you know, the anger is not being directed at the United States. It's been directed at this Iranian regime, its corruption, its economic mismanagement, and its decision to put its nuclear ambitions ahead of the livelihood of its people. The way you do that is you have to drain Iran of its foreign exchange reserves. That it's its principal economic weapon to forestall an economic crisis. Our analysis that we've done shows that Iran is still about 2 years away from running out of foreign exchange reserves. And if the nuclear threshold line is a year away, there's much more that we've got to do.
Wow, we haven't heard that yet, Mark, that it would take another 2 years to really, really affect Iran's economy. How do we speed that up, and how much faster do we need it to happen?
Well, we need to happen at least a year faster. I mean, we need it to happen before spring or summer of next year, where Iran becomes a nuclear threshold power. In order to do that, we've really got to accelerate these sanctions massively. We've got to go after Iran's foreign exchange reserves that are sitting in international banks around the world. We've got to designate Iran's central bank so that we cut it off from the formal financial sector. And we've got to go as close as possible to imposing an import embargo on commercial goods and services that are sold to Iran. If we do that, we may bring this regime to the verge of economic collapse, and then we'll test whether Iran's supreme leader, Ali Khamenei, if he's willing to put his people's livelihood ahead of his nuclear ambitions.
What a choice. And I know you're one of the first groups, if not the first group, to look at whether or not these economic sanctions are working and what the timeline is. So we look forward to having you back to talk more about that, Mark. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much, Jenna.